I worked the front desk at a hostel in Prague. An American arrived past midnight. No reservation. She tossed her passport across the counter and said, "1 room. King bed. Non-smoking." I explained we only had dorm beds available. She stared at me like I'd spoken Martian dorms. Like college. Shared rooms. 6 beds per. I'm 37 years old. She said this like it was a medical condition that exempted her from basic reality. I have a master's degree. I don't sleep in bunk beds. Suggested the hotel 2 blocks away. She asked how much. I told her about 80 euros. 80 euros. That's like, what? $90? About 95. She pulled out her phone and started jabbing at a currency converter app, absolutely certain I was scamming her. When the math confirmed reality, she looked betrayed. This is insane. In Florida, I can get a Hilton for $70. This is not Florida. Yeah, no kidding. She glanced around our lobby like she was scanning for hidden cameras. Is this whole city a tourist trap? Or just this neighborhood? I told her Prague was one of Europe's cheapest capitals. She snorted. Cheapest. Everything's in euros. We don't use euros in Czech Republic. We use koruna. I showed her the price sheet. She studied it with deep suspicion. Then announced she'd sleep in the train station and file a complaint with TripAdvisor about our price gouging. She left. 3 hours later, she came back and paid for the dorm bed. A German backpacker in the bunk above her snored all night. She wrote a 1-star review claiming we'd falsely advertised quiet accommodations. Our listing said nothing about noise levels. It did say shared dorm in the title. Americans have confidence that could power a small nation. What they often lack is the willingness to read literally anything before arrival. These are their stories, if you already see the deeper pattern forming. The gap between confidence and comprehension. This is the clarity I bring every week. Subscribing means these smarter breakdowns don't get buried by surface-level content. I worked at an Amsterdam pharmacy. An American woman asked for Tylenol. I handed her paracetamol, same drug, different name. She read the box and shook her head hard. This isn't Tylenol. It's acetaminophen. Same medicine. Tylenol is acetaminophen. This is ... para-c-ta-mol. She butchered the pronunciation with impressive conviction. That's European stuff. I need the American version. I assured her it was identical. She looked at me with pity, like I was the confused one. Look, I'm a nurse. I know medications. Tylenol has a specific formula. This is generic. I explained that Tylenol was actually the brand name and paracetamol was the medical term used globally. She cut me off. Globally, America invented modern medicine. We set the standards. If this was the same thing, it would say Tylenol. She demanded to speak with the lead pharmacist. My colleague came over, a man with 2 decades of experience and 0 patients left. He confirmed everything I'd said. She asked if he'd trained in America. He said no, Utrecht University. She nodded slowly like that explained our confusion. So you learned European medicine? That's different from American medicine. He blinked twice. Medicine is medicine. Then why are the names different? Neither of us had the energy to explain trademark law. She left without buying anything. Wrote a review warning Americans to bring your own medications because Dutch pharmacies don't stock real brands. The box she'd rejected cost €3. Tylenol at the airport shop cost 14. I sold rail passes in Munich. An American man slapped his printed email confirmation on my counter and said, "I need to validate this." I told him it was already validated. He had a digital ticket. He frowned. "No, I need the stamp." The conductor checks for stamps, not with e-tickets. "Just show your phone or this printout." He leaned in close. "I've been on trains before. I know how Europe works. You buy the ticket, you validate it, you board. That's the system." I explained that Germany modernized years ago. Most tickets were digital now. He crossed his arms. "My guidebook says you validate tickets in those yellow machines on the platform. That's for certain regional passes, not ICE trains with reservations." ICE. The high-speed train you're booked on. His face shifted through several emotions before landing on suspicion. How do I know you're not trying to get me fined? Maybe you get a cut. Stared at him. He stared back, fully serious. I work for Deutsche Bahn. I don't benefit from passengers getting fined. That's exactly what someone who benefits would say. He grabbed his printout and marched to the platform, muttering about scam artists. 10 minutes later, he returned, sheepish. The conductor had confirmed everything I'd said. He didn't apologize, just asked if we sold snacks. Most channels would leave it at the laugh. Here, we decode the cultural psychology behind it. If you're someone who prefers frameworks over punchlines, you've already found your home. Lock that in. I gave walking tours in Copenhagen. An American college student raised his hand mid-tour and asked what language Dane spoke. Danish, nodded thoughtfully. But also Swedish, right? Since you're basically the same country? A couple of Swedes in the group exchanged glances. I explained that Denmark and Sweden were separate nations with distinct languages. Yeah, but you're both Scandinavia. That's like how Americans speak English, but so does Canada. Same language, different accents. Swedish woman politely corrected him. Swedish and Danish are different languages. We understand each other somewhat, but they're not the same. He processed this slowly. So, ... You're saying if I learn Swedish, I can't speak it here? You could try? We'd understand some words. That's so inefficient. He seemed genuinely baffled by this design flaw. Why don't you just pick one language for the whole region? Vote on it or something? I suggested he was thinking of the EU, which had 24 official languages. His face went blank. 24. For one country? The EU isn't a country. It's a union of countries, like the United States. We have 50 states but one language. A French tourist nearly dropped her camera. Someone from Belgium laughed out loud. I decided to move on before an international incident occurred. Later, the same student asked if Denmark used Europe money or their own currency. When I said krona, he asked why we hadn't switched to the main one yet. He meant the euro. We'd opted out in 2000. He suggested we'd probably join eventually once we figured out the benefits. A Danish teenager whispered to her friend in perfect English. This is why they lost to Vietnam. I worked at a boutique in Paris. An American woman bought a scarf, 60 euros. She asked for a receipt. I gave her one. She studied it like a legal document. This doesn't have the store address. I pointed to the header. Store name, full address, tax ID number. She squinted. Why is it in French? Because we're in France. I needed in English for my expense report. Explained that French law required receipts in French. She could photograph it and translate it herself, or her company could. She looked appalled. My company isn't going to translate a foreign receipt. That's insane. Can you print an English version? We don't have that option in our system. She pulled out her phone and started researching international receipt requirements. After 2 minutes of aggressive scrolling, she announced, "It says here receipts must be readable by the purchaser. I can't read French. Therefore, this receipt is invalid." I asked where she'd read that. She showed me a blog post from 2009 about small business accounting in Texas. That's American tax law. Doesn't apply here. Consumer rights are universal. Not really, but I didn't argue. She demanded to speak with the manager. My manager arrived, looked at the receipt, looked at her, said in flawless English, "This is a valid receipt under French commercial law. Would you like the scarf or a refund?" The woman chose the scarf, but insisted we email her an amended receipt with English descriptions. We never did. She charged back the payment through her credit card, claiming fraudulent documentation. The bank sided with us. She left a review calling us hostile to Americans because we refused to provide legal receipts. I worked at a grocery in Stockholm. An American man asked where we kept the refrigerated milk. I pointed to the dairy aisle. He looked, came back, and said we were out. I walked with him to the aisle. Dozens of milk cartons sat on shelves, unrefrigerated, ultra-pasteurized, standard across Europe. "This is shelf milk," he said, as if identifying a completely different product. "I need real milk. Cold milk. I explained that UHT milk was real milk, treated to last months, without refrigeration. Perfectly safe. Widely used. If it doesn't need refrigeration, it's not milk. It's, I don't know, milk product. It's milk. Spoils. That's how you know it's real. Showed him the ingredients. Milk. Just milk. He remained unconvinced. In America, milk comes from the fridge. If it's on a shelf, it's fake. I asked if he'd like to try it. He recoiled. I'm not drinking shelf milk. Who knows what chemicals they put in it? Heat, that's the chemical. High heat. He asked if we had a real dairy section in the back. I told him this was it. He left empty-handed and bought a liter of orange juice instead, also unrefrigerated. But apparently that was fine. Later I saw him at a cafe drinking a latte, made with the same shelf milk he'd rejected. When I pointed this out, he said cafe milk was different because it's European style. I didn't know what that meant. Neither did he. I worked hotel maintenance in Berlin. An American guest called the front desk in a panic. His devices wouldn't charge. He insisted the outlets were broken. I went to his room. He'd plugged his American devices directly into European outlets without adapters. The prongs didn't fit, obviously, but he tried to force them anyway. Why are your outlets shaped wrong? He demanded. They're shaped correctly for Germany. You need an adapter. I have an adapter. He held up a USB cable. Not that kind. A plug adapter. For the wall outlet? He stared at the outlet like it had personally wronged him. This is ridiculous. You'd think a hotel would have universal outlets by now. I explained that Europe used Type C and F plugs. North America used Type A and B. Different standards, different systems. So you're saying every country just does whatever they want? There's no, international plug agreement. Not really, no. Called this backwards and suggested Germany switch to American outlets, since most tourists are probably American anyway. I told him most tourists were actually Chinese, followed by other Europeans. He didn't believe me. Then why is everything in English? It's not. You're reading the English translations? He asked where he could buy an adapter. I said the shop downstairs sold them for €5. He called that price gouging and asked if I had a spare he could borrow. I didn't. He asked if he could just swap. Out the outlet in his room, for an American. 1. I left. I bartended at a ski resort in the Swiss Alps. An American couple ordered 2 beers. I poured them each a half-liter. The man watched, horrified. Those aren't pints, they're half-liters. 500 milliliters. How much is that in real measurements? About 17 ounces. So ... Less than a pint. A US pint is 16 ounces. This is more. His wife cut in. We ordered pints. We should get pints. Explained that Europe used the metric system. We served beer in liters, not pints. Half a liter was standard. But you speak English, the man said, as if this proved his point. English measurements use pints. Switzerland has 4 official languages. None of them make us use imperial measurements. They asked to speak with someone who understood proper beer serving. My manager came over, a Swiss-German man who'd worked in hospitality for 30 years. He confirmed everything I'd said. The couple insisted this was false advertising. They'd seen beer on the menu and expected pints. My manager asked if they'd like a full liter instead. They said no, half was enough, but the principle mattered. What principle? My manager asked. The truth in advertising? If you say beer, people expect a pint. People expect what they're used to. You're used to pints. Here, we use liters. The man paid but left no tip, not that tipping was customary in Switzerland anyway. His wife took a photo of the beer menu and said she'd report us to International Consumer Protection. We never heard from them again. I've worked tourism for a decade across 6 countries. I've seen Americans argue with the ocean for having cold water in April, with mountains for being too steep, with history for being too old. They arrive convinced the world works one way their way and react to evidence. It's otherwise like it's a personal attack. Not all Americans, obviously. Many are curious, adaptable, grateful, but the loud ones? The confident ones? They're a special category of chaos. If you've worked in tourism, hospitality, or retail anywhere outside America, you know exactly what I mean. Drop your stories below. Let's compare notes on the wildest cultural collisions you've witnessed. You've clearly got the curiosity for this. Subscribing is just making sure you never miss the next breakdown because the metric system episode. You'll want that clarity when the chaos hits. Next time, I'll cover Americans versus metric system signs. Spoiler, nobody wins, but the confusion is spectacular.